Hi, I'm Tony Buffin with Human Cloud, and we're live here at SIA's CollaborationX conference in Dallas, Texas. And I'm sitting with Brian Hoffmeyer, who we've known each other for a little while.
Yeah, a few years.
With Beeline. And I'm really excited to have you on this podcast and talk about how things are going. Brian, tell us about your role and a little bit about Beeline.
Awesome. Yeah, and thank you for having me. I'm excited about it as well. So I am Beeline's Senior Vice President of Market Strategies. Do a number of different things for the company. The hat that I wear most of the time is I've got responsibility for our global partner ecosystem. So that consists of MSP partners, technologies, large and small, from Oracle to many of the companies that are here today, as well as consultancies and suppliers in the space. I've been with Beeline for coming up on 21 years now, which is just kind of crazy to think about.
Like, you started when you were 13.
Thank you. That's very kind. So an aside, it's ironic to me that so many of us in this space that serves temporary labor are here for as long as we are, right? Yeah. I mean, because my story is not an uncommon. Beeline has celebrated 2 25-year anniversaries this week, actually, of our employees. So just kind of crazy. But yeah, part of the Beeline executive team, and just absolutely passionate about the importance of, one, the non-employee workforce, but also collaboration. Like, as someone who manages partners, my job is about connections. And so this conference really fits in well with that.
Well, and probably part of what enables that kind of long tenure is Beeline is constantly evolving, staying at the front of the front of the pack.
Yeah,
and part of that is bringing on not only new partnerships but new teams. And one of that is MBO Partners.
Yep.
Tell me about how that was a great splash. I think a lot of people thought it was super interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me how it's going.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were quite surprised by it because it was frankly, it was a different direction for Beeline. We've been a technology company for years, ever since we spun off our own MSP. But what drove the acquisition, because I think this is really important, is our strategy is to have the right solution for every different way that people engage non-employees. And there's a lot of different ways, as you know, that people engage non-employees. And so we looked at ourselves and we saw this hole around independence. And we also saw that that's a market that's growing. I mean, we saw that, both at the CWS conference a couple of days ago and this conference, seeing those statistics, it's going to continue to grow. And so that really is what represented an opportunity for us to find a solution for that, to fulfill our mission of having the right product for all of those different ways people engage non-employees. And, the acquisition has gone really well. One of the things that's incredibly important to Beeline in general is culture. A lot of times when we ask our clients why they bought us, why they stay with us, of course, there's features and functionality and commercial arrangements and all those things that matter. But feeling like the Beeline culture matches theirs, and we're there to serve them in a long-term, bi-directional, really important relationship. And so that's true of how MBO works with their clients. A lot of what MBO does is serving very high-end independents. And so, it's a high-touch business that requires a lot of care. So that fit in really well. Their people fit in really well. And, actually, it'll be interesting. Doug, our CEO, is speaking at the end of the day today on one of the sort of TED Talk style things they're doing here. And he's talking about build, buy, or bust. And he's going to tell stories of acquisitions. And he's going to tell some stories of things that didn't go as well. And like when we've acquired other technologies, there's been a bit more butting of heads because there's, our way, their way, like, you're competing directly, and so there's feelings to get over and all those things, right? And with MBO, there's just not that. It very nicely tucks in to our offering to our clients, and clients have been incredibly excited about it, as have the partners that we work with. I manage a ton of just absolutely strategic MSP partner relationships, and they're looking for solutions. And the great thing about MBO is we've got some things that are unique about what they do.
Yeah, I think, to me, it was super exciting for this space. I love this flexible workspace because it was a validation of that recognition. This is a growing area where people are going to work more and more independently. But, I see a challenge in enterprise adoption because there's so many there's so many hurdles to bringing in a lot of these, disparate or marketplaces.
Yeah.
When they can access it directly through you, it's automatic. It's a big hurdle that's just completely disappears.
Right. Yeah. It's taking away one of those objection points and friction points, I guess, if you will, to make that process that much easier. Because especially when it comes to independence, a lot of customers, you ask them if they use independent contractors, and there's kind of some embarrassed looking around no, we don't do that, and it's not true. They do.
They do.
And
maybe they don't know, or like you said, or maybe they feel like they shouldn't be, but they are.
Yeah, they're by doing that, by pushing it under the rug, they're exposing themselves to significant risk, and that's what we can help them really achieve. And the company that won the Shark Tank here, it was all about fraud and things like that, and that ties in, and compliance risk is so incredibly important. Yeah. Whether it's is the person fraudulent, but also have you classified them correctly? Because if you don't,
absolutely
major issues.
Well, and that's another reason why it's a big hurdle for enterprise, because all you have to do is see a couple of headlines around lawsuits or settlements and fees. Yeah. And people are like, I don't want any of that noise, so I'm just going to stay completely away from that.
Yeah.
And that's also the wrong answer.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So
pretending it doesn't exist is not a strategy.
Yeah, ignoring it, because you eliminate your ability to be agile, flexible, and tap into the best talent that's out there. I like to talk about accessing talent, or talent access versus acquisition, because there's so much talent out there, and what's important is being able to utilize that talent.
Yeah.
However and wherever they are.
Agreed.
And that's a lot of what you guys enable.
Yeah, I think the kind of the most interesting high level question is, how should work get done, right? And that's not a simple question to answer. Yeah. It's hard to answer at the sort of top level of an organization, because different companies have different approaches about how much they want to outsource of their core strengths. What is their model? But then you get the constant dynamic of talent controlling things, and we talk a lot about the war for talent, and it's the joke is it's over and talent won in a lot of cases, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
But certain parts, certain demographics, certain skill sets, they don't want to work as a full-time employee, and so it's your only option. So making that decision first holistically, and then if you're a hiring manager running a project or whatever it is, what's the best way to get that done? Do you find people on your bench that are already your employees? Do you use contingent workers? Do you create a statement of work? Do you use independents? Do you use some combination of all of those things? And if we can help people answer that question, we're doing good.
Well, another big question, it's been all around this conference, and I'm sure it comes up for you every day, is around AI.
Of course.
How are you leveraging AI, deploying AI for your clients, and helping them adopt, the technology to deliver on all the promises of productivity for the organization?
Well, I'm pretty glad we got through a few minutes of this podcast before we mentioned AI. So I think we should congratulate ourselves for that. But of course, we're doing a number of things with AI. We don't say that we're AI first, because we think that's sort of a false flag.
Yeah.
AI is enabling processes. The most important thing for us is, one, that there's a human in the loop.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking about making decisions about people, about who to engage, we need that human in the loop to validate that decision, to make sure that the AI is correct. And then on a related level, you've got to have the right amount of data.
Yeah.
In order to be confident that the decisions you're making are good. Because, when you see, small organizations, small providers, they may have built some AI that looks good on the surface, but there's not that foundational data, and that puts the decisions that it's making, it makes them suspect. And so we very, very deliberately make sure that the data is backing up the results, and we're constantly checking those things and improving the algorithms that we use throughout our application. And we've got a whole range of different things. Some we build ourselves, some that we look to partners to add to what we do, because they've built something that's quite cool. I think the most important thing now is to look at what should AI be doing versus what humans should be doing, right? And it's a very complicated sort of, not just in our industry, that's a universal kind of question to be asking. But there's so much can automate that makes humans better.
Absolutely. Well, AI ideally is also an enabler.
Yeah.
An enabler of creativity, because it's hopefully taking a lot of administrative, mind-numbing activity off our plate.
Yeah.
But it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
And especially within organizations that have a lot of complexity.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to get over the trust hurdle as well. That's hard to implement.
For sure.
And it's also hard to drive adoption.
I mean, they talked about that on the panel this morning. Like the biggest hurdle is not IT, it's risk, compliance, and legal. And like we see this all the time. Our clients are really excited about the things we're doing, and a lot of our clients, we're incredibly privileged to work with some of the biggest brands in the world, but large, complex organizations, and we get our stakeholders that are in talent acquisition or HR, procurement, some combination of those things. They get excited, but then when risk gets a hold of it, compliance that's when the gates start coming up, and it slows adoption. And I don't think that's just our experience. Like that's sort of a trend that we're seeing.
Well, I think these big brands. I mean, they have all these resources, legal and whatever, to protect them. So it feels like things can happen even more slowly.
Yeah.
They need really reliable partners to help them navigate that process. And to me, that's part of the benefit of working with so many is you had that experience.
Yeah.
You know what you've helped them navigate, or other companies navigate that before.
Sure.
And you kind of know where the landmines are.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been dealing with things like data security and that kind of, so that that's relevant experience to helping navigate that for sure.
Yeah. So we've talked about the conference. You talked about the panel.
Yeah.
I've been in here for 2 days, so I'm missing.
Locked
what
away.
are some of the trends outside of AI that have been really interesting to you? Kind of opened up your mind to what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, I think a couple. One is that there seems to be a renewed interest in making sure that when I'm saying this, I'm talking about buyer companies that buy contingent labor, which is our primary client, in making sure that they've captured all of their workforce in their program, whether it's a VMS only program, whether it's a program with an MSP and a VMS, because until you got it all managed and visible, you can't start to make decisions. And so that's something that's really, really important to me and to us. It's like, because it's a bit of a, if you're talking about total talent management, but you're not managing all of your workforce and have visibility, like get that done first. And then, so I'm seeing a renewed interest in that, especially around statement of work, because I think that's the other thing. There's a lot of talk around of staffing companies shifting to becoming solution companies, right? And which I think is great. One, it diversifies their business because it's yet another hard year in staffing.
Yeah.
And customers like that delivery model because it shifts the risk on the delivery to an external party. And so that's a related trend that we're seeing, and there's a lot of talk of.
I talked to John, SIA's global head of research, yesterday, and we talked about kind of where staffing's been over the course of this year, but he expressed some optimism going into next year around the industry growing a little bit. When you think to next year, what do you see on the horizon?
Yeah, I would agree with John. We do some tracking across our client base where we try to normalize effectively what is same store sales, right? So we're taking out new customers. We don't put a new customer into our kind of same store until they've been with us for a while. Growth within a customer, so we can kind of look at those trends, right? And we're starting to see a slight, like it's like almost imperceptible slope in the growth, but we're starting to see it. As we were talking, I saw a slide pop up on the monitor that it's behind us of the Bullhorn SIA Staffing Index.
Yeah. We
track that pretty closely.
Okay.
And it shows, I think, reason for optimism. I don't think we're going to get to kind of like hockey stick growth. And it's kind of interesting to think about, like, will we ever get back to like what we saw in like at the start of the pandemic, like 2020, 2021, like we should probably erase those years and reset the baseline, because I just think they're
it's a huge outlier.
There's anomalies in life, right? And I think we are starting to see the impact of AI on certain things that used to be done via contingent staffing, QA testing, lower end customer service. Like those jobs aren't coming back to people, and so it'll be interesting to watch the growth over the next few years.
Yeah, but even if it's almost imperceptible, it's at least it's a slight tick up versus a slight tick down.
Yeah, I feel like I need to knock on wood saying that, because we've been wrong. Like we've all been wrong on this before, but
it's hard to predict. Well, and that's to me, we're in such an unpredictable age.
Yes.
I've talked a lot about this in the past, that it makes it really difficult to plan and prepare, which is why organizations need access to flexibility with talent. So
sure.
if it's better than we expect, then they need to be able to quickly access talent to support that and drive that growth.
Yeah.
If it's not, they need to be able to adjust down where they need, or a new technology comes out, they need to be able to shift their talent to embrace that technology.
Yeah.
Having a partner like Beeline enables that for them, so that they can adjust on the fly.
Yeah, helps them make those decisions. I mean, like ultimately, when we talk to our clients, they've been with us for a long time. The thing they value more than anything else is the visibility to make decisions.
Yeah.
And that gives them different levers they can pull to achieve a result. And even within the same company, you're a really good point. Like things change. Like all of a sudden, like, oh, I've got to have this kind of developer because that's what's hot to do the thing I've got. And like, the external workforce really helps with that.
Yeah, again, we don't have a crystal ball. You can't see it.
I wish.
It'd be really great. We probably wouldn't be here.
Yes.
But the more that you can adapt quickly, the better off you are, and that's where we win. It's speed.
Yep.
And the right partnerships allow you to work with speed.
Yep.
And not having those really draws your whole organization back.
Yeah, agreed.
What are you the most excited about that's coming up on the horizon?
I mean, I'm excited for the industry to get back to growth because I think it's had a chilling effect. I mean, people have kind of been mopey, which I get.
Brian, you're never mopey.
I try not to be mopey once in a while. Ask my wife. She'll tell me I'm mopey from time to time. But so I'm excited about that because I think that's just going to drive excitement and innovation.
Yeah.
For us specifically, I'm excited to see how we continue to incorporate all these various companies. For us, we're now a multi-product company. We've got all these different solutions, which is it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun to 5 years ago, you and I are having this conversation. Not everyone in this room was my customer. Now everybody here is my customer.
Yeah.
I've got a product that can hopefully be helpful to them, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's got to be exciting because that's a ton of opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can imagine it could also be a little bit overwhelming.
It can be.
But there's a reason why, you've been talking all day, every day, because you have so many people that you can work with.
Exactly.
People that want to learn more, where do they go?
Sure. I mean, certainly Beeline.com. You can go and learn about everything. Anyone who's listening or watching can feel free to LinkedIn to me. And then I'll even throw out my email address because it's super easy. I'm at Hoff@Beeline.com. And, like I said, I'm passionate about this space. Always glad to have a conversation.
Well, it's great to have a conversation with you.
So
I
much
always
fun.
love bumping into you at these conferences.
Me too.
Thanks for joining me.
Of course. Thank you.